Before 1985, nobody believed a comic book publisher would actually kill a flagship hero. Not for real. But DC Comics did exactly that, and the character they chose wasn't even one they liked. What followed was a corporate experiment that accidentally invented meaningful death in comics, and it changed the rules for every single character that came after. So today, I'm breaking down every major death in DC Comics history and everything behind them, starting with the one that started it all, The Flash. Here's the thing about Barry Allen. He was The Flash for nearly 3 decades. He helped build the DC Universe from the ground up, and DC editorial thought he was boring. That's not speculation. That's literally why they killed him. The higher-ups at DC decided he didn't have the excitement modern readers wanted. So during their massive crisis on Infinite Earths crossover in 1985, they handed down a corporate mandate. Barry Allen dies, which is, not ideal for Barry. But here's where it gets interesting. The death they gave him wasn't some throwaway moment. It was the single most heroic act in DC history up to that point. In Crisis on Infinite Earths number 8, the Anti-Monitor had built an antimatter cannon capable of wiping out the last 5 remaining Earths. Barry Allen did the only thing he could. He ran. He ran at velocities that shouldn't be possible, channeling energy through his body to counteract the antimatter weapon. He phased through different points in the time stream, his body breaking apart with every step. Before long, he lost all physical cohesion. Everything that made Barry Allen a person just dissolved. All that was left was an empty costume. The guy they called Boring had just saved every Earth in existence. And then he stayed dead. Not for a few issues. Not for a year. Barry Allen remained dead for 23 years until Final Crisis in 2008. An entire generation of readers grew up in a DC universe where the Flash was genuinely, permanently gone. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. Before Barry, comic book death was a gimmick, a cliffhanger you'd resolve in 3 issues. His death proved that a publisher could actually follow through, that a major hero could die, and the story would be better for it. He created the entire template for DC heroic sacrifice, a character choosing to end their life to save millions, fully aware that nobody's coming to resurrect them. The executives wanted to get rid of a character they found dull. Instead, they made him legendary. I don't know what to tell you. But if Barry Allen's sacrifice hit readers like a freight train, it was nothing compared to what happened 1 issue earlier. Because Supergirl didn't just die. She died saving Superman himself. Supergirl, Kara. Zor-El died saving one person. Not the universe. Not the multiverse. One person. And that's exactly what makes her death hit harder than almost any other in DC history. Crisis on Infinite Earths. Number 7 dropped in the summer of 1985, and it contained what might be the single most devastating sequence DC has ever published. The Anti-Monitor, the guy who'd been systematically deleting entire universes from existence, was about to kill Superman with a massive energy blast. Supergirl saw it happening and made a choice. She crashed into the Anti-Monitor with everything she had, delivering blow after blow, buying Superman enough time to survive. The Anti-Monitor's counterattack tore through her. She absorbed wounds that no Kryptonian should have been able to survive, and she didn't. Here's what gets me about this. Barry Allen died in the same event, same stakes, same villain, but Barry died stopping an antimatter cannon aimed at 5 remaining Earths. His sacrifice was cosmic. Abstract. Supergirl's sacrifice was intimate. She didn't die saving billions of faceless people on parallel worlds. She died so her cousin wouldn't. That's it. That's the whole reason. And then Superman did something that created one of the most iconic images in comic book history. He carried her body from the battlefield, wrapped in her tattered cape, openly weeping. That single panel of Superman cradling her broken body became the defining image of the entire Crisis event. News of her death rippled across the DC universe. Every hero felt it, but here's where it gets complicated. Barry Allen eventually got a clean resurrection decades later, showed back up, put the suit on, business as usual. Supergirl? Not so much. DC has brought back characters called Supergirl multiple times across different timelines and incarnations, but none of them represent a straightforward resurrection of the original Kara Zor-El. Her death has been fractured across continuities, rebooted, reimagined, and rewritten so many times that the original sacrifice exists in this weird narrative limbo. She's back, but she's also not back, which is, not ideal. What made her death genuinely significant in 1985 was that DC proved female heroes face the same permanent consequences as male heroes. Same event, same finality, same emotional weight. Kara didn't get a softer exit because she was Superman's cousin or because she was a woman. She got the full treatment. The sacrifice, the memorial, the lasting absence. In 1985, that actually meant something. But if Supergirl's death made the entire DC universe mourn, the next one made fans pick up their phones and vote for it. Robin DC. See, comics did something in 1988 that no major publisher had ever attempted before. They let the audience decide whether a character lived or died, and the audience chose violence. Jason Todd was the second Robin, and he had a problem. He wasn't Dick Grayson. Readers knew it, DC knew it, and honestly, Jason probably knew it too. Where Dick was charming and athletic and beloved, Jason was angry, reckless, and about as popular as a parking ticket. He was the Robin that nobody asked for, filling shoes that nobody wanted filled. So when writer Jim Starlin crafted A Death in the Family across Batman number 426 through 429, DC saw an opportunity. Jason had tracked down his biological mother in the Middle East, walked straight into a Joker trap, and gotten beaten within an inch of his life with a crowbar before being left in a warehouse rigged with explosives. Batman number 427 ended with the building going up. Jason's fate? Unknown. Here's where it gets weird. Instead of just writing the next issue, DC set up two 900 number phone lines. One number meant Jason survives. The other meant Jason dies. The lines opened at 9 a.m. Eastern on September 15th, 1988, and stayed open for exactly 35 hours. That's it. 35 hours to determine whether Batman's sidekick lived or died. Hey, what should we do with this major character? I don't know. Ask the readers, I guess. The votes came in. A narrow majority chose death. Batman number 428 hit shelves on October 18th, 1988, and it depicted exactly what you'd expect. Batman pulling Jason's lifeless body from the rubble. No last words, no heroic sacrifice. Just a dead kid in a warehouse because a clown thought it was funny. And then the backlash hit. The same readers who voted Jason dead were furious that DC actually did it. Let me just repeat that. Fans voted to kill a character, DC killed the character, and fans got mad about it. I don't know what to tell you, but here's the kicker. Jason didn't stay dead. Years later, he was resurrected through the Lazarus Pit and came back as the Red Hood, an anti-hero with a grudge the size of Gotham and zero interest in Batman's no-kill rule. Death fundamentally broke Jason Todd and rebuilt him into something darker, angrier, and ironically way more popular than he ever was as Robin. The best part? In 2018, DC relaunched the poll for the 30th anniversary. Nearly 19,000 fans voted. This time, the overwhelming majority chose to keep Jason alive. The same fan base that killed him would now save him. 30 years of character development, a killer leather jacket, and a couple of really good storylines apparently do wonders for public opinion. Jason Todd's death turned comic book mortality into interactive entertainment. It proved that audiences will absolutely pull the trigger when given the chance, and then feel terrible about it for 3 decades. But if one dead sidekick shook the comic book world, imagine what happened when DC killed the most powerful hero on the planet, Superman. This is the one that broke containment. Every death we've talked about so far happened inside the comic book world. Fans mourned, readers debated, shops sold out. But Superman's death in 1992 didn't just shake comic shops. It hit the evening news. It made the front page of actual newspapers. People who had never held a comic book in their lives were standing in line wrapped around street corners to buy Superman number 75. Most of them had zero idea what they were even holding. They just knew Superman was dead, and that felt like it mattered. Here's the thing, DC didn't stumble into this. They engineered it with surgical precision, and the buildup is one of the most clever structural tricks in comic book history. The villain, Doomsday, was introduced as a seemingly mindless murdering monster with no backstory, no motivation, no grand plan, just destruction. He tore through the entire Justice League like they were made of wet cardboard, then marched straight toward Metropolis. Superman was the only one left standing, but the real genius was the visual countdown across the issues leading up to the death. Adventures of Superman number 497 had 4 panels per page. Action Comics number 684 dropped to 3. The next issue went to 2. And then Superman number 75 hit, and every single page was a full splash page. One massive image after another. Like the story itself was running out of breath. The panels were literally counting down to his death, and most readers didn't even notice until it was over. The final fight came down to one punch. Superman and Doomsday channeled everything they had into a single simultaneous blow, and they killed each other. Superman collapsed in Lois Lane's arms, and that was it. Superman number 75 moved around 3 million copies, making it one of the best-selling single issues in comic book history. Not the top spot. X-Men number 1 claimed that with over 8 million the year before, but for a book where the hero loses, 3 million is staggering, and the media coverage was insane. This wasn't a comic book event anymore. This was a cultural moment. Mainstream outlets covered it like an actual death. People who couldn't name a single member of the Justice League were suddenly having opinions about Doomsday. But here's where it gets complicated. The follow-up, Reign of the Supermen, introduced 4 different characters, all claiming to be the resurrected Man of Steel. A cyborg, a teenager, a guy in a visor, and a steel-armored engineer. For months, DC let readers argue over which one was real. And then, of course, the actual Superman came back. Because he's Superman. He was always coming back. And that's the tension at the heart of this whole thing. Superman's death was simultaneously the most emotionally impactful death in comic book history, and the moment that proved death was becoming a sales tool. It moved millions of copies. It dominated headlines, and then it got reversed. The resurrection didn't just bring Superman back. It planted a seed in every reader's mind that would grow into full-blown cynicism over the next decade. If Superman can't stay dead, who can? But if Superman's death made people question whether comic book death means anything, the next one made them question whether whether a hero's entire legacy could be destroyed and rebuilt from scratch. Green Lantern. Most heroes on this list died as beloved figures. Hal Jordan had to earn that right back first. See, by the time Hal Jordan died, he wasn't Green Lantern anymore. Not really. He'd been corrupted by an entity called Parallax during the Emerald Twilight storyline in the Zero Hour event, turning one of DC's most noble heroes into a reality-altering villain who tried to remake the entire universe according to his own broken vision. The guy went from founding Justice League member to cosmic-level threat in the span of a few issues. So when his death finally came, it wasn't a hero making a sacrifice. It was a fallen villain looking for redemption, and that changes everything about how this story hits. In 1996, DC launched The Final Night, a crossover event built around a genuinely terrifying premise. An alien named Dusk crash-landed in Metropolis to warn that a Sun Eater, basically an artificially created black hole, was headed straight for Earth's sun. Not a supervillain, not an invasion force, a cosmic phenomenon that would snuff out all life on the planet by consuming the thing keeping everyone alive. Over 24 heroes, villains, and scientists united to stop it, and none of them could. The sun was dying, Earth was freezing, and nobody had an answer. Nobody except the guy they all hated. Parallax absorbed all the energy from the Sun Eater's supernova blast, then rechanneled that radiation along with his own green energy to reignite Earth's sun. He died at the heart of it, burned away, saving the planet he'd once tried to destroy. Which is, a pretty effective apology. But here's where it gets complicated. Because the question that haunted readers wasn't whether the sacrifice was heroic, it was whether Hal Jordan actually made the choice. Was it Hal, buried somewhere under Parallax's corruption, clawing his way back to do one last good thing? Or was it Parallax making a calculated move? The story never gives you a clean answer, and that ambiguity is exactly what makes it stick. You can't just file this under hero dies saving the world and move on. There's genuine philosophical weight here about identity, corruption, and whether a single act of sacrifice can erase years of destruction. And DC wasn't done with him. Within a few years, Hal's soul bonded with the spirit of vengeance in the 1999 crossover Day of Judgment, making him the new host for the Spectre. So he went from villain to martyr to literal divine instrument of God's wrath, Casual Tuesday. Then, in 2004, the miniseries Green Lantern Rebirth fully resurrected him and reinstated him as Green Lantern, completing one of the longest redemption arcs in comic book history. Here's the thing. Hal Jordan's death established something DC would lean on heavily going forward. Death didn't have to be just an ending. It could be a transformation, a character development tool. You could take a hero, break them completely, kill them in a blaze of moral ambiguity, resurrect them as something new, and then bring them all the way back, villain to sacrifice to spirit to hero again. That's not a death. That's a 4-act character arc that just happens to include dying. But if you think moral ambiguity makes a death complicated, wait until Batman gets involved. Because Bruce Wayne turned dying into a tactical decision. Batman. Every other hero on this list died once, maybe twice if you count a reboot. Batman has died nearly 24 times across his publishing history, and honestly, most of them were on purpose. That's not a joke. While Superman gets punched to death by a monster and Barry Allen disintegrates saving the multiverse, Batman is over here poisoning himself for a case. In Batman number 72, published August 1952, Bruce Wayne deliberately ingested poison to infiltrate a criminal organization called the Death Cheaters. The plan required him to be legally dead. Not pretend dead, legally dead. As in, a doctor checked his pulse, found nothing, and signed paperwork. Bruce Wayne just decided that dying was the most efficient way to go undercover, and nobody around him seemed particularly alarmed by this, which is, not ideal. But that's the thing about Batman. He doesn't experience death the way other heroes do. For Superman, death is a tragedy. For the Flash, it's a sacrifice. For Batman, it's a Tuesday. In Brave and the Bold number 115 from November 1974, Batman got electrocuted on a high-voltage window frame, full flatline, completely dead. The Atom had to shrink down, enter his body, and manually figure out that the electrocution had disrupted his vital systems rather than destroyed them. So Ray Palmer was literally performing microscopic surgery inside Batman's corpse while Batman was just casually being dead. Again, but the crown jewel, the one that every Batman fan knows, is The Dark Knight Returns. Frank Miller's 1986 masterpiece ends with an aging Bruce Wayne fighting Superman in a powered exosuit, pushing his broken body to the absolute limit. And then his heart stops. Batman flatlines. The Dark Knight is dead, except he isn't. Bruce Wayne had taken an antiarrhythmic agent beforehand, a compound specifically designed to fake cardiac death. He planned the whole thing. He knew he'd fight Superman. He knew his heart would give out. And he knew that if the world believed Batman was dead, Bruce Wayne could disappear and continue his war on crime underground, leading a group of rebels called the Sons of Batman. He didn't cheat death. He weaponized it. And that's what separates Batman from literally everyone else in the DC universe. Superman dies and the world world mourns. The Flash dies, and the timeline fractures. Batman dies, and it turns out he had a contingency plan for that too. Every single death in his history is either a calculated tactical decision or an accepted risk that he'd already accounted for. Here's where it gets really interesting though. Batman is the only major hero on this list without superpowers. No Kryptonian DNA, no Speed Force, no Power Ring. He's a guy in a suit with a lot of money and an unhealthy relationship with preparation. The fact that a regular human has died more times than most gods in the DC universe and come back every single time through nothing but planning and willpower is either the most inspiring thing in comics or the most insane. Probably both. Other heroes fear death. Batman schedules it. But if Batman treats his own mortality like a chess move, the next hero on our list wasn't given that luxury. Martian Manhunter didn't get to plan his death. He barely got to fight back. Martian Manhunter. J'onn J'onzz didn't just lose his family. He lost his entire species. Every single Martian was wiped out by a telepathic plague called Hrungnir's Curse, engineered by a deranged Martian named Maleficac, who weaponized the one thing all Martians shared, their psychic connection. Imagine your greatest strength being turned into the thing that kills everyone you've ever known. That's what John lived through, and then he had to keep living. He was pulled to Earth in 1955 by Dr. Erdell's experimental teleportation beam. Erdell, a scientist who had zero idea what he was messing with, successfully dragged an alien across the cosmos and then immediately died of a heart attack from the shock, which is, not ideal. So now John is stranded on a planet he doesn't understand, with no way home, no people to return to, and the one guy who brought him here is dead on the floor. But here's the thing about John. He didn't spiral. He became a detective, took a human form, called himself J'onn J'onzz, and quietly became one of the most dependable heroes in the entire DC universe. Founding member of the Justice League, the guy who showed up every single time, he was the heart of the team, and most people didn't even realize it until he was gone. His death came in Final Crisis #1, and it was brutal in the most disrespectful way possible. He was captured by Libra at the request of the Human Flame, a D-list villain so obscure most readers had to Google him. Libra murdered John with a fiery spear in front of the entire secret society of supervillains. A founding Justice League member, the last Martian alive, killed as a demonstration of loyalty for a villain club. Cool, add that to the list. But what happened next is what makes this death hit different. As John died, he reverted to his true Martian form and sent out one final telepathic transmission to every member of the Justice League. Not a cry for help, not a warning, a eulogy, his own eulogy. He transmitted the complete history of Mars, the story of his people, everything, directly into the minds of his teammates. Every other hero on this list died, and someone else had to speak for them. John spoke for himself and for every Martian who ever existed, because there was literally nobody else left to do it. He was buried on Mars. Superman delivered the eulogy. The Justice League transported a pyramid from Egypt to the Martian surface to serve as his tomb. They sent him home, to a world that had nothing left on it but his grave. Now, here's where it gets complicated. John was resurrected during Blackest Night, first as a Black Lantern zombie and then genuinely brought back. He's died and returned multiple times since. But by 2008, resurrection wasn't a miracle anymore. It was a scheduling conflict. Everyone knew John would come back. The question was never if, but when. And that fundamentally changes the weight of a death scene, no matter how beautifully written it is. John's death represents this weird inflection point in DC history, where the writing was genuinely devastating, but the stakes were already hollow. The telepathic eulogy is one of the most poignant moments in comics. The revolving door that followed it is one of the most predictable, and somehow both of those things are true at the same time. But if you think losing the last Martian was painful, wait until DC killed the one person Batman couldn't function without, Alfred Pennyworth. Here's the thing about everything we've covered so far. Barry Allen came back, Supergirl came back, Jason Todd came back, Superman came back, Hal Jordan came back. Batman was never really gone, Martian Manhunter came back, every single one of them returned, because that's what happens in comics. Death is a revolving door with a really dramatic entrance. So, naturally, the one character who actually stays dead is the Butler. Alfred Pennyworth was murdered by Bane in Batman #77, written by Tom King with art by Michael Janin, published in 2019. Bane snapped his neck. No cosmic event, no antimatter cannon, no vote hotline, just a brutal, ugly killing at the hands of a man who wanted to break Batman by taking away the person who mattered most. But here's where it gets genuinely weird. That death was never supposed to be real. Tom King revealed after the fact that Alfred's death was originally written as a fake-out. The entire scene was meant to be a Scarecrow-induced hallucination, with Damian Wayne experiencing his absolute worst fear, watching Alfred die. That was the plan. Scarecrow gas. A nightmare, nothing more. Then the issue came out, and DC publisher Dan DiDio called Tom King and editor Jamie Rich on release day. Readers wanted consequences. They wanted this to matter. So DiDio told them to make it permanent. Just like that, a hallucination became a death sentence. A phone call on a Wednesday afternoon rewrote Alfred Pennyworth's entire existence. King assumed Alfred would stay dead for 15, maybe 20 issues, a year at most. Enough time to let the story breathe, then bring him back like everyone else. As of 2024, Alfred has been dead for over 5 years. Even Tom King has publicly said he's shocked it stuck. And the strangest part isn't that Alfred stayed dead, it's how little the narrative seemed to care. Batman, the man who built his entire identity around loss, has had 0 major story arcs centered on losing the most important person in his life. Nightwing honored Alfred's memory by using his inheritance to fund community projects in Nightwing number 83. Damian Wayne got his revenge on Bane in Batman and Robin number 12. Alfred's daughter Julia said she wanted nothing to do with the Bat family anymore. And then everyone just kind of moved on. That's it. That's the aftermath for the man who raised Batman. By 2019, the running joke in comics was that nobody stays dead except Uncle Ben, Bucky Barnes, Jason Todd, and Gwen Stacy, which is hilarious, because 3 of those 4 had already been resurrected by then. The list was a punchline about itself. Death in comics had become so meaningless that even the examples of meaningful death weren't meaningful anymore. And yet, Alfred Pennyworth, a character with no superpowers, no cosmic significance, no Speed Force connection, and absolutely 0 narrative reason to stay dead longer than anyone else, is the one who proved that death can still mean something in the DC universe. Gods come back, Kryptonians come back, speedsters outrun death itself, but the guy who made Bruce Wayne's tea and stitched up his wounds and told him to go to bed, he's gone, for real, for years, with no return in sight. I don't know what to tell you. Sometimes the most permanent thing in a universe full of resurrections is a man with a serving tray and a British accent. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.